So good afternoon and welcome to the NJSBDC at Rutgers-Newark's After Lunch webinar. Today's webinar is launching a private label, and it is being presented by Nellie Reyes. She is one of our consultants here at the SBDC at Rutgers-Newark. For those who are not familiar with the SBDC, we are a resource center for the Small Business Administration, and our objective is to provide one-on-one business consulting to individuals who are, thinking about starting a business or trying to start a new business, and for established businesses, whether they need help in different areas. That can be with import-export, it can be with marketing, it can be with accessing capital or procurement, government contracting. We have consultants with expertise in each of these areas that are willing to consult with you one-on-one to help your business start or grow. We have 12 centers located across New Jersey, and each center is responsible for one or more counties. The SBDC Center at Rutgers-Newark, is responsible for Essex County. So if your business resides in Essex County or you live in Essex County, you will come to us for the one-on-one counseling. If you're in other counties, you'll just find your respective counties or we refer you there. So you simply just need to visit our website, www.rnsbdc.com, and in the top header of our website, just click the request counseling button, fill the form out, and a counselor will be assigned to you within 24 to 48 hours. Well, they'll reach out to you within 24 to 48 hours. Like I said, if you're outside of Essex County, there is an SBDC for you. We'll just simply transfer you to your appropriate account, to your local SBDC. All our workshops and events, which we also provide, you are free to attend them no matter where in New Jersey you live. We welcome you to attend all our workshops, especially during this time. Some of us, unfortunately, might have some downtime, and it's a great opportunity for us to brush up on some skills or, learn something new that can, help us once we go back to our new normal. So without taking up too much more of your time, for the convenience of everyone on this webinar, we have muted the audio in terms of for you to be able to communicate. So please feel free to use the chat box located to the right of your screen. If you can just post some questions there, I will relay them to Nellie, and she'll do her best to either answer them during the presentation or after. And again, for everyone that's attending, you will be sent a copy of today's slide, and please take advantage of the one-on-one counseling, which I think Nellie will talk about at the end, if you're interested in, launching or starting your own private label. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Nellie.
Thank you, Priscilla. Hello, everyone. Welcome to launching a private label. So we can get right into it. This presentation will hopefully give you what you need to know that you have the tools necessary to get started, bringing your idea to life. If it is your desire to bring a private label product to market or service to market, which is why I'm assuming you're all here. So I would like to start by just introducing myself, talking a little bit about my background. I'm currently the founder and CEO of Freshie Natural Feminine Care Corp, which is a natural feminine care product company, so consumer goods. And I am distributed online as well as Amazon, and have gotten my products into 2 national retailers, one being Urban Outfitters and the other being Riley Rose stores nationwide. So that's kind of my current focus. I'm also the co-founder of Successful Brands New York City, which is a consulting company. And I'm a former point of sale specialist at Starz Television Network. where I spent over 7 years working with clients throughout the US and the Caribbean. Also, I am a consultant at the SBDC Rutgers-Newark and work with clients interested mainly in private labeling. So my background is in personal care goods, mainly, and marketing and sales. And I, again, hope that you can learn something from me today. So let's begin by defining a private label. Private label is products that are from diverse industries. They can range from food to cosmetics, and they're manufactured by a contract or third-party manufacturer, sold under your brand name. And so as the brand name owner, you make all the decisions on the product specifics, including things such as trademark and what styles, if it's, let's say, textiles, the design, flavors, scents, sizes, pricing, your target market, and packaging. So you have control over exactly how it is that you want this to reach your target market. And so it really is bringing your idea to life. Whatever it is you've dreamed or you've thought of, you could do better than someone else. And later on, we're going to talk about how it's not just products, it's also services that can be private labeled, particularly in the situation we all find ourselves in right now, how we're living. We're going to see how services are also possible to private label. So if anyone has any questions, as Priscilla said, you may type them in and she will jump in at the end of every slide and have me answer the questions. So on average, private label products account for 21% of consumer packaged goods at US retailers. That is according to Statista.com as of November 2019. So a relatively recent number. And it might seem low, 21%, but it actually is pretty significant and continues to grow. As of November 2019, Walmart North America sold $49.3 billion worth of private label products. So that's pretty significant when you look at it in dollar terms. $49.3 billion worth of private label product sales. Also, just to give you another idea, sales of private label health and beauty aids in the US is $88.1 billion as of December 2019. And again, this is continually growing. In my experience, it has been in consumer goods. And I certainly have seen from just when I launched my product line, which was in 2014, how much more product offerings I've seen come about in what sometimes is called the indie space, which refers to independent beauty labels or personal care product labels. And the growth has been significant, and it's really inspiring to see that a lot of people just had this idea, this concept, had this recipe or this formula that they came up with, or were able to get access to a formula that they were able to design in a way that became so appealing to the masses. And when you see them land on the shelves at Whole Foods, or you see them land at the shelves at mass retailers such as Walmart, it's really inspiring, because it just really shows you that this is possible to do. So how to go about it? Well, you have options. In private labeling, you can either go proprietary, which basically means you have an original design, an original formula, an original recipe, you know, an original way to do a pair of pants, or as we said earlier, a service, something that you might be really skilled at doing, but you want to do it differently, or you have an angle that's different. So that becomes proprietary because it's yours. Just to give you an example from me, my formula for my product offering, it's a proprietary formula because I hired a formulator to create a unique formula for my product line. And you know, it belongs to me. So that's the way I chose and opted to go about it. And the reason I did that is because I knew specifically what I wanted, and I wanted to make sure it was something that did not exist anywhere else, that no one else had. So that's one way that you can make that decision to go proprietary. And again, depending on which industry you're looking to go into, you can make that decision and find someone who can commercialize your recipe or your idea, your design, whatever the case may be. So the other option you have is ready-made. This is often also called off-the-shelf. Off-the-shelf basically means you find a contract manufacturer that offers exactly what it is that you want. They've already got formulas available for you. Let's say if it's in personal care goods, they'll have 10 different options you can choose from. You know, let's, as an example, say you want to do a hair care line. They might have a whole hair care line that's moisturizing. So they will use that off the shelf or ready-made formula and put it in the packaging you want and give it, you know, obviously it would have your brand name on it. And, you know, you can launch to market. This is oftentimes easier because, you know, you don't have to pay a formulator, for example, to formulate for you, or someone to take a recipe and turn it into a commercial recipe. You're just doing what's already available, tried and true. It's not unique, so that other people might have it in market, but in this case, you would just have to make sure to have a unique positioning in the market. Some ready-made formulas are, the manufacturers will be flexible and will, if you say, you know, I want the vanilla collection, but can you add mint to it? Some manufacturers will do that for you. Some will not. Some will say ready-made formulas are only as they come, and all we do is put it in your packaging. You know, this is an option for those who want to start faster, to go to market faster approach, because again, all you need to basically come up with is the branding and the packaging, and the product is already there. It also allows you to just sample. I know some manufacturers that will send you samples of their ready-made formulas if you're interested in a particular category. And this way you can try it or taste it. You know, in the case of fashion, you can wear it and see how it feels. And then it's a matter of you bringing it to market and then focusing on distribution and marketing and sales, as well as positioning. The third option is re-engineered. And so re-engineered is basically taking a product that you like, that you've seen in market, that you maybe use, that you pick up at a store or taste or try somewhere, and you say, you know, I'd love to do this, but I'd like to make it different in X way. And so you can bring that to many contract manufacturers and say to them, you know, can you re-engineer this for me? I want this exact same formula, but add this ingredient to it. Or even, you know, there's nothing like this, and I want it in my name with my positioning for my target market. Can you please make it for me? And so many will. You know, the limitations here is if the formula is proprietary and patented, for example, or if the design or the product, then you obviously can't get into trademark infringement or patent rather. pardon me, patent infringement. And in that case, the contract manufacturer will have the experience, should have the experience to know what they can re-engineer and what they cannot re-engineer. But this is an approach people will take, again, when there is a product that is maybe relatively new to market and has done extremely well, and only one other company is doing it, or two or three, few players basically in the game. And you may think, you know, they're selling this to a demographic that's consuming it, but I have a plan to sell it to a different demographic. So I just want it re-engineered with my brand name on it so that I can take advantage of the demographic that's not being served by this other company or by this other brand. That's a good time to decide on using the re-engineered option for a brand, for a product. So, you know, speaking of setting yourself apart, because when you private label, that's going to be what's going to more than likely deliver success. If you're launching a product line and the features and benefits are exactly the same as one other, 10 others, or 20 others in market, then, you know, it isn't going to necessarily stand out or be very appealing. In other words, why would people buy yours if they have already been buying this other brand that's got the exact same thing you have? So you want to make sure when you're launching a private label, when you're planning for it, that you're going to have unique points of differentiation. And I said points because it can be more than one, but it can also just be one thing. And oftentimes, and many of you have probably heard of or even used brands that really there's one thing about it that's different than anybody else's product, even though there may be many of the same type of product within a category. So very important that you define your unique point of differentiation when you decide you're going to do a private label product. Same goes for service. If it's going to be a service, you need to make sure that, you know, you can still do, for example, financial services for someone. But ideally, there's something about coming to you that makes it more appealing than going to the other person. Number two is you want to have attractive design or packaging. This is huge, especially in today's world, because the market can be so cluttered. You take, for example, a walk through an aisle at a Walmart, which is, you know, the mass retailer that does the largest amount of sales in the US. There's a lot of product, right? There's a lot. And so what stands out and makes people, you know, be interested or get interested in picking it up and reading and see what you're offering is that you have attractive design and or packaging. Even in foods, right? We see in foods now that it's something in just a clear plastic cellophane bag doesn't tell a story, while packaging that, you know, claims to satisfy you a certain way or deliver what you're looking for, nutrients, health, if you're wanting to live a healthy lifestyle, is what really drives that purchasing decision. I've also seen firsthand from having gotten into the Urban Outfitter stores, which is the first national retailer that I was able to get my products into, that you know, and what I did was I visited all the New York stores. We were in some Los Angeles stores, New York stores, and throughout different states. But because in North Jersey, I spent a day in New York just going through all the stores. And it made such a difference to have packaging that was clean, crisp and clean, but also had a colorful pop that stood out. Because guess what? You're not going to be on the shelf by yourself, right? You're going to be on the shelf with other products. And so this is an opportunity to grab the customer's attention. So Again, regardless of the industry you're in, you want to have an attractive design or packaging. If you're going to be private labeling a service, then your opportunity is to have an attractive website, attractive, um, you know, brochures, or attractive, your marketing materials need to be very attractive so that the person looking at it decides this is who I want to go with. And then number 3, functionality that is valued. And what we mean by that is, you know, if you have an idea or you launch a product that is functional in a way that is not valued by consumers, then it won't matter that that is functional. And so what I mean by that is, I'll give you a kind of a far out example, right? Let's say you decide to launch a shampoo product that when people put it on their hair, it like crackles and pops. I don't know. So that, you know, they feel that sensation. But if people don't value that and don't think, ooh, that's getting my hair cleaner, or, oh, that's strengthening my hair, then that's a functionality that's not going to really be valued. And so, you know, one way to determine this when you are preparing to launch your own, if it's a product or service, is to test it. You know, either come up with a prototype, or in the case that you're going to just use a contract manufacturer or formulator, have them give you samples and have people try it first, your friends and family, and give you their feedback. This way you can confirm, yes, you know what, this is functional the way I designed it, I thought it up the way I dreamed it, and people really value it. So I would say those are the 3 main points that are going to set your private label product apart, and that are going to help you end up with something that is truly uniquely yours, and that you're going to be able to market, because these are points that you'll be able to use for marketing when you're at the point where you can market. Getting started. So once you've made these decisions, you know, whether you're going to go proprietary or off the shelf or re-engineering, and you've started to think about what your unique points of differentiation are, and what we covered on the last slide, also, you know, the value, the functionality that's valued by others, then you can start to say, okay, I'm ready to go to the next step. And the very first thing you want to do is you want to create a product launch plan. A product launch plan is different than a business plan, because a business plan will obviously have the information and the details of your full business operation, how you plan on operating, who will be the key players, the finances, etc. If you haven't done that already, the contact, you know, the SBDC, and they can give you a consultant, assign you a consultant rather, that can help you with that. But the product launch plan, excuse me, will have details specifically of how you plan to launch your product, how you plan to bring it to life. You know, it will answer the questions of the slides we covered previously. It'll just have the details in writing for how you're going to go about choosing who to contract manufacture with, or how you're going to choose the options you're going to choose, whether you're going to have an original formula or whether you're going to use something off the shelf. And it will just serve as a roadmap. I read something interesting recently that said, you know, when an architect has an idea or a creative idea for a building, he or she doesn't just go and start building. They first create a blueprint for what it's going to look like. And we need to do the same when we're going to take on bringing something to life that's dear to us, or that we are certain can do really well in the market, or that, you know, there's different reasons for you wanting to launch a product. I know someone who had promised an aunt who was ill that he would make wigs for anyone who had the same illness as her, and he's done extremely well with that. So sometimes it's because, you know, you want to make someone proud. Other times it's because you just said there's money in this and I'm gonna do this just to make, you know, money. I'm gonna take advantage of this. And sometimes it's just well, I've had this idea since I was a kid, so I'm going to go for it. Whatever your reason, you must create a product launch plan. The other thing is you need to identify a suitable manufacturer. And so when we look at suitable manufacturer, we're going to look, and one of our slides is going to explain how to do that. It really means you've got to find someone who is right for you. Not everyone's right for you. I can share with you early on when I went to launch to market that I spoke to several manufacturers, and some wanted me to start with 10,000 units of one variant. I was launching 3 variants. And when you're a startup and your funds are limited and you're launching the market to basically test and see how you're going to make this thing work, you do not want to start with someone who forces you or who, you know, says to you, well, I can only do 10,000 units of each. You need to find a manufacturer that is suitable for where you are when you're ready to launch. Some people can start with 10,000 units at a time, depending on the cost of what they're doing and depending on how well financed they are when they're ready to start. Also, you need to know what is important. And again, we're going to get into exactly what I mean by that. Let's discuss the product launch plan. You want to answer the what, and that is, what am I launching, right? Exactly, be specific. You know, you don't want to say I'm doing a hair care line. You need to say I'm doing a hair care line that's going to be for curly haired girls, right? Be specific. The why. So why are you doing this? Because I see an opportunity in the market space for this hair care line, for example, or because it's a new niche that I'm going to create. When this is about giving yourself a timeline for when you're going to do what you're going to do, spring 2020 or summer 2020. This helps you work. It gives you a roadmap for when, like anything else, you know, you set goals, you should put a time constraint on them because it helps you move towards it in a planned way. Does not mean you've got to do it by then. Sometimes we have to move up the date because there are unforeseeable circumstances that might change that when, but you should at least have a when that you're working towards. Where is, you know, where are you going to sell this? What's your goal? Is it going to be for the Walmarts of the world, or is it going to be for luxury retail? You know, if you're doing a clothing line, for example, you want to know if you're going to be selling mass or you're going to be selling luxury. Or if you're doing a food product, then you want to know, are you going to be targeting the consumers at ShopRite, or are you targeting the consumer who buys at Whole Foods? Because that's going to determine a lot about how you package and what things you say on the packaging. You know, that leads us to the who, which is precisely who's your target market. Is it women? Is it men? You know, some people will say, well, it's for everyone. But even when something is for everyone, there are demographics to consider and to take into account. So that's the importance of identifying your who. You know, we can take the example of the iPhone, right? It's for everyone, but it's for everyone who appreciates design or who wants to have the latest in technology. So, you know, it's for men, women, young people, older people, but they have to have a certain desire that makes your product right for them. And then how much? And the how much answers at what price point do you want to your products to reach the end consumer. Again, you know, if it's going to be mass retail, then you're not going to sell it for $100, right? You're going to have to sell it in a way that is affordable for people who purchase at Walmart. And the same if you're going to create something that's a luxury good, then you obviously can price it at a luxury price. Then we'll look at how you identify a suitable contract manufacturer. One very important point is to ask about their capabilities. And this refers to knowing if they've got the equipment to make what you're wanting them to make, being certain of it, being certain of the fact that, you know, they have access to the raw materials that are needed. Also knowing if they can deliver products to you within, you know, the time frame you need them. You know, some contract manufacturers take 12 weeks to deliver. You might need your products delivered to you sooner. So that's something that you need to take into account. You know, how capable they are. Also, do they have experience with your category? You do not want to choose a contract manufacturer who makes food items to make your perfume, because obviously they're going to be trying to do something they're not great at. A lot of them won't do it anyways, but you might find a contract manufacturer that just says yes to everything, whether they're good at it or not, whether they have experience with it or not. It will make a big difference if their experience and expertise is within the category you want to launch your product in, because, you know, they'll be able to work with you, give you ideas, there will be a sense of ease in what they're doing. I spoke to many contract manufacturers before deciding on the one I've been using for the past 4 years now. And, you know, this is all they do, is my type of product. So it's been hugely helpful because I can sit with the lead manufacturer and basically come up with anything I need, because this is what he does all day long and what they focus on. So that's very important. And then you want to have pricing that makes sense. So early on, when I was going to launch Freshie, I had a contract manufacturer tell me his minimum order quantities were 5,000 units of each, and I really considered working with him. But the manufacturer I ended up working with gave me a better price for ordering a 500 unit minimum order quantity. So I tell you, it is very important to shop around and make sure you're really getting what matters. And when it comes to pricing that makes sense also, you know, what I mean by that is that you've got to be able to make a profit. You don't want to price, and, you know, I know there's courses you can take on pricing the product correctly, but you don't want to end up creating something that you think is great to sell for $10 and the contract manufacturer can't make it for less than $8, and now you're basically making no money, because the point of being in business and selling something is obviously to be profitable, or one of the main points anyways. So along with that though, you don't want to just focus on pricing. That makes sense. You do need that. You need to make sure you're priced in a way that the pricing your manufacturer is giving you is making sense. However, quality is just as important, because if you go with just, you know what, I'm just going to pick the manufacturer that gives me the least expensive price point, but then their quality is no good, then you're not going to have repeat customers, right? Or you're not going to have satisfied customers if your product is a one-time purchase type of product. So it's important to not only focus on pricing. Also, you know, I was saying, speak to a few manufacturers. It's really a good idea to contact probably between 10 and 20, so that as you filter them down, you can have maybe 2 to 4 that you can actually consider really doing business with. You also want to know upfront how you ordering more volume changes the price. Okay, sometimes you get a price break at the 1,000 units, or 1,500 units, 2,000 units. It's good to know that, because you might find 2 manufacturers that meet all the qualifications that you have, but one doesn't give you a price break till you get to 5,000 units, while the other one, who's just as good, might give you a price break at 1,500 units. That could be a reason to choose the manufacturer that will give you a price break at less amount of units, because the idea is that you're going to grow here, right? And that you're going to need more. Also, when selecting a suitable manufacturer, you want them to show you that they want your business. Even though you're not doing business with them yet, take into account how they treat you. Do they respond to your emails on time? Do they treat you professionally, even though you might be small potatoes, right? I had a manufacturer who was actually, they were printing packaging for me, and made a mistake in one of the runs. And when I brought it up and said, this isn't straight, they said, well, I mean, I think you're going to have to keep it that way. Now, this printer also printed products for big brands, like Estee Lauder was one of the brands that they printed packaging for, and I said to him that day, absolutely not. I will not keep it. You would not say this to Estee Lauder. Now, this is before I even had gotten into the national retailers. This is like my first year in. So after that experience, and of course, we ended up going back and forth, and he ended up reprinting my run. But, after that experience, I knew that was not someone I wanted to continue to work with, because they were treating me like I was not significant because I wasn't one of these large brands. And so to me, that was very telling, as to, you're not showing me that you want my business. And I said to him, when I'm selling 1 million bottles a year, you're not going to say to me, you have to keep it. Something isn't straight. I need you to give me the same treatment now. So you can look for signs of how someone will treat you in the long run. And I think that that's a very important point, because ideally you're going to have a lasting relationship with whomever you choose to work with, because you want consistency. That's a very important feature that private label products need to have. If you change from manufacturers constantly, the consistency is not going to be the same, because everyone works differently. And even though you might have, let's say, a proprietary formula, you want to try to give your customers what they're used to, what they fell in love with. So that's why it's really key to upfront identify a suitable contract manufacturer. So getting to what's important to know, you've got to know what the minimum order quantity is before choosing someone. Again, if you're not in the position financially to, or even storage wise, to start out with 10,000 units, then you need to know that up front. You don't want to get through all these other steps with a contract manufacturer and identify them as, this is my guy. And then they say to you, well, you need to order 10,000 units minimum of each for me to make it for you. Because you just spent a lot of time trying to find out all these other things about them, their capabilities and, pricing and so on. But you didn't know that minimum order quantity was beyond your capabilities. Also, turnaround time frame. I mentioned before, you don't want to choose a manufacturer whose average turnaround time frame is 12 weeks or 8 weeks or 6 weeks, and believe me, it happens. If you know, you kind of are living production to production because you had to start small. And so every 4 weeks, you need to place an order and you need the product available in 4 weeks. That's very important to find out. It's also good to get this information in writing, so in an email from the contract manufacturer, so that later they can't say to you, no, 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 we don't work that way. You want to get these things in writing. And a very key point is responsible manufacturing. The last thing you want is to be doing really well with your product line, you know, have gotten approved by a major retailer, and then find out that the manufacturer you're using does child labor, or uses child labor, right? I don't know if any of you are familiar with several years ago, the Honest company. Honest is a consumer goods company where one of the co-founders is Jessica Alba, the actress, and you know they wanted to do for baby care the natural, better ingredients approach, and they found that one of the manufacturers they were using was lying about what the ingredients they were using in their products. So they were saying, for example, they were making sulfate-free formulas, but they weren't sulfate-free. They were adding chemicals, and so you know they were able to get through that, but it was a really bad time for the brand. They lost a lot of sales. Everyone started returning the products. So you want to do your due diligence and find out that the manufacturer you're looking to work with practices responsible manufacturing. I think, you know, for some people, this is more important than for others, but I also think it's important to take into account their footprint. You know, if it's a company that's known for throwing waste in the ocean, I know personally I wouldn't want to work with them because at the end of the day, I'd like to be working with people who care about more than just making a profit. So those are the three things that I'd say you absolutely must know about a contract manufacturer, along with the other points I already made about the capabilities they have and what kind of pricing they'll give you, etc. You know, it's good to also know that they're flexible, that they would work with you if needed on changing something, you know. For example, if, you know, you thought you wanted to have a certain level of fragrance in your product line and realized after launching it, you know, that's not what I want. I want it to be softer. You want them to say, okay, we can pivot. That's a big point as well. I think as in any relationship that we have, it's important to be able to have flexibility to tweak things as you go along. And so let's talk a little bit about private labeling a service and or skill, because as I said before, in the time we're living in right now with everyone quarantined at home and, you know, with the way our world is changed and is going to be changed when we all are hopefully able to get back to as normal a life as possible, service-based businesses are going to be hugely significant. They already are right now, right? If delivery companies are doing well, there are businesses that are going to do really, really well and grow hugely as a result of this situation. I mean, they were already on the rise, but they're going to be even more. So it's important to know that, because I think that oftentimes people think it's just a tangible product that can be private labeled. The truth is, you can take a skill that you have or a service that you can give, even though there's thousands of people also giving this service, if you give it an angle that's appealing to your target consumer, you can succeed. 9.3 million is the amount of jobs in the service industry that are going to be added to the US economy by 2024. Okay, people are increasingly seeking on-demand services. As I said, you know, I'm sure everyone on this webinar has, within the past 4 weeks, ordered something to be delivered or tried to get someone to offer you a personal service that you can't get, or that is only convenient to get through someone offering you the service, because you can't just walk into places and grab something anymore or get what you want. So when someone can make it happen for you, you're willing to pay for that. And so looking at this number, I think is important, because it goes to show you that 2024, I mean, is here in less than 4 years. There's room for growth here. So if your idea is, I can do math really well, so I can offer tutoring services for math, this would be a great time to go for it and give it your own angle and your own special way of doing it. Some service business ideas to private label are educational services. I just talked about math tutoring, for example. Financial services. Everybody needs a good financial services provider, whether it's a bookkeeper or an accountant. People who don't know how to manage their finances could really benefit from someone who's good at it. Hospitality services. If you look at the success of Airbnb, for example, right? Who knew people were so hungry for that? For being able to just rent someone else's apartment or someone else's bedroom in someone's apartment. So hospitality services are huge, and it's not just renting a place to stay. Hospitality obviously encompasses many other opportunities. Home healthcare services. Gosh, when this situation we're all living in is over, there are going to be a lot of people who are still going to be afraid to go out, even when they're told it's okay. So if you're offering, home counseling or some kind of service that's in the healthcare category, I think you can do really well. Personal services, again, pet grooming is a personal service. People are wanting these things on demand in their homes more and more and more. Food delivery services, and you might think, well, Uber Eats has already got the market on that. If DoorDash had thought that, because they came in after Uber Eats, or actually might be vice versa, but they wouldn't be participating in the success of the opportunity. So, when you look at these ideas, it's easy to be kind of cynical and say, oh no, that's, those markets are so saturated, it's already being done. But remember, there's something that sometimes people do different and in a way that's more appealing to others. There's always room for someone to come in and do it different and appeal to a different market. So that is the end of my presentation. And I wanted to share this quote with you because we spend so much time sometimes talking about an idea and a concept. And, I can tell you that I wanted to do Freshie since I was 19 years old, which was a very, very, very long time before I actually did it. It has its benefits because I did it in a way that probably I wouldn't have done it had I done it when I thought about it. I learned a lot working in other industries, and I learned a lot of sales and marketing before I got there. But you're here today because you're interested in private labeling, and you probably have this amazing idea or this really potentially profitable idea. You have this thing that people somewhere need and are wanting. You got to get started. So this quote, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing, is my way of saying to you, take the steps you need to take, contact the SBDC and start a speaking to a consultant if you need help, or take the notes that you probably took during the webinar, or when you get the presentation, go over it again and start creating your roadmap, because the only way you're going to start is if you start to take those steps. And this is a difficult time for everyone because a lot of businesses are closed, but there's still a way to make progress daily. So I recommend you start somewhere if you haven't already. And for those of you who are a little further along, then figure out what your next step is to get you closer to where you're going. In the middle of situations like the ones we're living in, it's still possible to find opportunity. So with that said, I included this here. Many of you already have the information. Priscilla shared it at the beginning of the presentation as well, but you have the website here and you have the telephone number. Reach out and get started if you need help. And so now we can move into the Q&A section, and Priscilla, I will.
Okay, yes, so great. We have a few questions, and for those that are on today's call, if you have any burning questions, feel free to type it in the chat. We're going to go through them one by one as long as we have some time. We have about 30 minutes left for Q&A. So we have a question from O. Walker. That person says, does the purchaser, that is the retailer, have any say in the development of the private label formula? Example, perfumes, cosmetics, foodstuff. Or must the purchaser simply locate a private label producer that makes exactly what you're looking for?
So I have heard, yes, examples of how a purchaser might want you to change some specifics in your product, or sometimes the size so it fits the shelf, or after you've already gotten into a certain retailer. Like I know of someone who got his healthy snacks into Whole Foods, and after being on the shelf, Whole Foods wanted him to make some changes to the packaging, and so they worked with him. It said, we want it to be brighter, it's selling, but we think if the colors are brighter, and instead of your packaging being soft, we want it to be cardboard so that it damages less, etc. That can happen. But, if you're starting out and you don't have a large purchase order, you can't wait to see if a purchaser is going to say, well, I want it this way instead of that way. You have to start with something, even if, let's say you bring something that's such a great product and a mass retailer says, I want it, but instead of being, in a white plastic bottle, I think it should be in a clear plastic bottle. Then at that point, with the purchase order in hand, you can go to a bank and say, I've got this purchase order, I need to fill it, but I need to make changes to the packaging. Can you fund it for me? So the answer to that, I guess, would be, yes, it happens, but it's not typical. It's not the way to get into a purchase, to get a purchaser to purchase from you. Does that answer the question? Or was it a different angle that you were asking me? Are you asking me as a purchaser?
There's no response yet. Oh, she says as a purchaser.
Okay, so you're a purchaser and you want to, yeah, again, so if you are a purchaser and you want me to have specific packaging or specific ingredients in my product line, you need to be making a pretty significant purchase from me for me to accommodate those needs. That's just me personally. In other words, it has to be worthwhile to the private label owner to make changes to suit the purchaser's needs. And that typically happens when it's a large box retailer.
Okay, another question. So I'm sorry, O. Walker, it's a he. He also says, I'm talking about buying from the third-party label producer.
I see. So Yeah, so when I shared that slide of the 3 different ways that you could do it, you don't always have to buy off the shelf. And sometimes even off the shelf, they will do things for you that you want done. So if they offer you a product line or a collection that's, you know, made of X, and you say, can you also add this other ingredient? Many will do it for you. And again, it depends on what you're asking for, but they will work with you to give you what you're looking for. Absolutely. If you're purchasing from a third party manufacturer, then ultimately what you need to end up with is exactly what you want. And this is why it's important to speak to different contract manufacturers, because you're going to find some that are going to say, nope, all we sell is exactly what we have as we have it, and we put it in your bottles, in your design, with your brand name. That's it. And then you're going to have some that say, sure, we've got this collection and we sell this. And I think I said this as a vanilla scent, but you want mint added? Sure, we'll add it for you. So the right contract manufacturer will, you know, give you, the purchaser, exactly what you're looking for.
Okay. We have another question here. How do you locate third-party private label producers? Is there a list? If you're looking in the phone book or doing a Google search, what general name would you type in to find a list of producers?
So, I mean, it comes down to you doing your research, yes, and doing your due diligence. You know, obviously Google is a friend. You can use Google, but you basically, I would type in private label manufacturers. And depending on which industry you're looking for, I would add for personal care goods or for food items or for clothing, for shoes. You know, be specific. It takes time to sit and research and sift through, and you identify ones that you're interested in. You know, there are companies that you can hire that will give you a list, or that will go through, you know, options for you, that will say, you know, here's a list. Do you want them to be in the same state as you? Does it matter? And can provide that for you. But really, it comes down to doing your due diligence and narrowing it down, to depending on your industry.
Okay. Another question here from Clarabelle. How can you research the responsibility of the manufacturers? Is there a third-party source we can use?
So definitely look for reviews. There are, like, if you're looking for a contract manufacturer, let's say outside of the US, like I know for China, and, you know, platforms like Alibaba will rate them, and will give you, so some of them will give you a rating. There's also a website called thomas.net, and that's THOMAS.net, that will give you different companies and give you a rating if they have one for them. You can try Dun & Bradstreet and see what the score that the ones you've narrowed down to have. And you can also contact your consumer affairs department and find out if there's any complaints against the one or the ones you've narrowed it down to. So the contract manufacturer I use, they list reviews on their website. So, you know, someone who's got accolades like that and who's got people saying great things about them will more than likely list it on their website. If they don't, you can also call them and say, hey, I'm really considering working with you. I'd love to get some references from customers you've worked with. And many of them will send them to you.
Okay, let's see. We have another question here from Jenny. What online resources do you recommend to source product manufacturers domestically and internationally?
So as I just shared, those platforms such as thomas.net, alibaba.com for international, mainly China. But I would also search just precisely that phrase, you know, platforms for contract manufacturers, and you'll probably get a few more. Those are the two main ones I know. There's one also called Global Resource that was actually around before Alibaba, that will give you resources globally. But those are the platforms I would recommend. I think that, and I'm not sure, Priscilla, the SBDC has this resource, but I know some small business organizations will provide like international lists of recommended people to work with. You can do a search and figure out who offers that. But definitely the most known ones for contract manufacturers particularly are Thomas.net or Alibaba. You can also try going to a trade show for your particular industry that you're interested in, whether it's food or, you know, personal care goods, natural foods. I mean, right now, obviously that is not the prevalent opportunity, but once markets open up again, I recommend going to a trade show that is, you know, within the industry you want to launch in, and you're going to find everything there. You're going to find packaging companies, and you're going to find contract manufacturers, and you're going to find, you know, marketers, and everything in one place. And it's a great investment to make because it opens your eyes to a lot. It really just inspires you. You come away with ideas. So that's a really good way for you to get access also in one location to what you're looking for in every aspect.
Okay, I think Nelson has a question here. I think you might have answered this, but Nelson says, I'm a label manufacturer. Where can I put my info to know about us? I guess he's saying, where can I put my info for people to know about us? Hopefully that's what you're saying, Nelson. That's a question.
You know, I guess you can speak to Priscilla. I don't know if at the SBDC he's allowed to say, hey, I offer this, but you know, you've got to advertise. I advertise on Facebook, or you know, it'd be great if anyone here thinking of launching a product could maybe do business with you. That would be awesome. But I think that's something you can speak to Priscilla at the SBDC and see how that's possible, like advertising your services. But basically, I mean, I imagine you're already hopefully advertising using social media to your advantage, especially now. And, you know, one way to do is to target companies that use labels on their products. You know, put up an ad on social media and tag them so they know you exist, so they know you're there. Sometimes, you know, you run a very inexpensive ad and you might get 10 new people looking at you and calling you and asking you for a quote. So definitely there are a lot of ways for you to get people to know that you are out there. You may want to also participate in a trade show, and some of them are very expensive, but some of them, the local ones especially, are affordable. And you've got a lot of business like fairs. And again, you know, I know that right now, really, you've got to just make use of what you can do digitally. But when the market opens up again, go to these small events and set up a table and show your labels and show what you can do. And almost always you're going to come away with at least one new client.
Okay, great. You're welcome, Nelson. Great. And Nelson, you know, for a lot of people, Nelson, we have a great marketing workshop. I think one is this coming Friday, you know, that talks about a lot about what Nelly just said in terms of, you know, running an ad or marketing on social media, you know, to draw that attention to your business. Feel free to just contact our center. Let's see. Does anyone here have, okay, great, Nelson. Does anyone else have any questions? I have one more here. This person. What, oh, which is more affordable, private label suppliers domestically or internationally? Example, Alibaba.
So depending on what you're looking to manufacture, um, you know, and remember, affordability entails a lot, right? Because you might be able to get half price for a product per unit in China, but then you've got to pay for that product to get to the US. And, you know, it's important that you know the true cost, or what's called the landed cost of an item. There are people dealing with ordering product from China, waiting the 30 days to receive it, or 45 days, dealing with customs, and they're saving 15 cents a unit. In my opinion, I'd rather just get it from the US, pay the extra 15 cents, not have to worry about dealing with customs. But that's in my category, right? If your category is, let's say, I'll give you an example of someone I know who is doing a beautiful fancy line of handbags. The person could not get those made in the US for a price that would allow the person to be profitable. So the person had to get it done abroad. So depending again on what you're looking for, if you're trying to launch the next iPhone, you know, in your own brand or your own style, you're probably going to get better pricing going abroad than in the US, because having tech stuff done in the US is still very expensive. But it's very important to do your research and to compare and contrast. But it's also very important to know that it isn't just the price you're given up front. You've got to always calculate the full cost. I'll tell you, I get my products from the US. I have them made in New York. And it's not just the price I pay for my products to be made. I also have to pay for freight transportation. That is all part of my cost. So you've got to really calculate the costs and decide what is worth it to you. If it's going to come from abroad and you're saving 15 cents a unit, is that worthwhile to deal with customs? And, you know, it's the longer waiting periods on turnaround time, usually because it's coming from overseas. It could be worthwhile in your industry. In mine, it's not.
Okay. Jennifer asked, how difficult is it to vet suppliers from overseas, such as, again, they have Alibaba, AliExpress. How easy is it to vet? I guess she's saying if they're legit or not.
You know, it's important to obviously go through the reviews and ask for references if they'll give you references. But in terms of easy, I mean, the truth is, when you're starting a business, nothing is really easy. If it's too easy, you're probably not getting the truth or the reality of it. So it's time consuming for sure. And I can't stress enough that you've got to do your due diligence, particularly if you're going to work with a provider from overseas. But, you know, as I said before, there are government agencies that will allow you, that you can contact and say, I'm trying to do business with X company. Can you tell me if there's, you know, any red flags concerning this company? And I know for some markets, there's, you know, they'll have that information. I had a company from Korea reach out to me several years ago wanting my product line. And obviously I went on their website first and checked out who they were and how legit they seemed. I saw that they worked with several American companies. They were representing 2 other American brands. So I reached out to those companies and said, do you really work with this company? Are they legit? Like, have you had good success with them? So really, it's doing your due diligence, not taking anything at face value, because obviously things on the internet, yes, even on Alibaba and some of these other platforms that are legit, you could have someone completely posing to be responsible and to be doing the right thing and not be doing it. But the only way you're going to find out is by making phone calls, sending emails, doing the research, going on their website, checking out who else they work with, verifying if it's true. So easy, I can't say it's, you know, easy from 1 to 10, it's 7. I think that everything is going to require you to invest the time and to be really smart and strategic about what questions you have answered before you move forward.
Okay, great. Do we have any questions? More questions? I'm trying to see if I missed anyone. If you did not hear your questions, feel free to just send a message on the bottom, but I think I've covered most. Okay, it looks like everyone is ready to get started, right? No more questions.
Great.
Good. So no, I think that's it. I don't see any more questions from our participants.
Great. Well, I hope everyone came away with information that is valuable and sufficient for them to say, I can do this.
Right. And for those that are here, if you at any point, I think Nelly said that earlier, if you're thinking about starting a private label, or if you have questions, you know, about getting started, or if you're already in the process and you just need the help of someone with some experience, feel free to reach out to the SBDC. Feel free to reach out to us. We are willing and able to help you through any issues that you might be facing. You're not alone. Okay. Again, as I said before, I saw one last question. I think I might have been missing one. Okay. Oh, Carol asked, did you have investors or were you self-funded?
I was self-funded. I went step by step. My first step was hiring the formulator, who I was able to get through a reference, former Procter & Gamble formulator that I was able to use and gave me a great price and worked with me on, like, you know, paying 50% down and then 50% and so on. And so I went step by step, the packaging, the designer, you know, and so on. So I was self-funded. I actually am still self-funded pretty much. Then I just got started. You know, there's an expression that says, build the plane while it is flying. That's not possible to do with everything, but whenever you can, you should really try that approach, because I didn't have in place all the money or all of the things ideally you would have in place when you get started. But if I had waited till then, I might not have gotten started till way later, and maybe by then the category might have been so saturated, or somebody else might have done what I did. So it's important that you know that it can be done sometimes with very little upfront, with the minimum. Yes, ideally we would all launch with $100,000, right? Or with an angel investor who's got this credit line available to us. But the reality is that sometimes that $500 you have, or that $1,000, is just enough to just get you started. And that whole concept of build the plane while it is flying is, after the plane is off the ground, then you can start adding, you know, the seats, the seat belts, you know, the little closet where people put their jackets away. So you can start to add things. I started with labels on my product and went to silkscreen bottles eventually. You know, I was going to start with just one variant, and I started instead with 3. I was able to do that. But, you know, my website initially was not the website I have now. and so on and so on and so on. My initial production was 500 units. Now I do 2,000 units of each of production, and so on. So in terms of funding, yes, it would be great to be fully funded, but you may just have enough to get started.
Carol also asks, how many employees, contractors did you have prior to your launch?
Zero employees. Contractors, I mean, I hired a formulator. Then I had a friend help me put up a website. You know, as I needed a service, like the person who helped me with my packaging design, I sat with her at Starbucks for a full day. We came up with the concept. So, you know, depending on what you're launching and what you're doing, when you create that product launch plan, that's very internal for you. Next to each thing that you're looking to do, you need to write down, who do you need? What do you need? You need a designer, you need a label provider, do you need, you know, do you need someone to formulate for you? Do you need someone? So you've got to define who and what you need, but it varies for everyone. But for me, I had 0 employees. I was working till 2, 3, 4 in the morning because I also had a 2-year-old at the time. So I couldn't really do things during the day. I was doing it from home. But look, I have friends who've launched very successful private label brands that have grown to do $2 million a year. And they were working other jobs when they launched. Like I have a friend who would sneak out from his executive position job at noon to run to the post office, basically. You know, sneaking, I'm saying, because no one at his job could see his car full of boxes that he was going to send to the bring to the post office to drop off to have his products shipped when he started. Eventually, he resigned to his executive position and was able to open up salons all over the US with his brand name that started with 1 product. But people don't know part of his success story is that he would leave his job as an executive to go drop off boxes at UPS. So in the beginning, more than likely, the employees are going to all be you, unless you've got the funding and you can hire out several contractors and you can hire out people who can do things for you. But when you start out lean, especially self-funded, you're going to be wearing, you know, I hate to sound cliche, but you're going to be wearing all these hats.
Okay, so we have about 10 minutes and a few more questions came in. Real quickly, I think Carol also asked, which distribution outlet, Amazon, Walmart, Target, did you find most favorable? And Atik also asked, is using fulfillment by Amazon suggested? So I think those are both similar questions.
Yeah, okay. So every single mass retailer, when you talk about Walmarts and the Targets, they each have their own requirements. Some are similar, but not all. For example, Urban Outfitters was had very different requirements than Riley Rose, which is a Forever 21 company. Different labeling requirements, different shipping requirements. The online products sold, it had to be shipped one way, and the products for inside the brick and mortar stores have to be shipped another. So really, I can't tell you one was easier than the other. Amazon, it's easy to put your products up there and to launch your store, but it has to be learned too. Amazon is a world that can really be cultivated, but you've got to spend the time researching and learning how to truly benefit from it, or hire someone who is a master at it, and then you can see the benefit immediately because they've already learned it for you. And to answer the question about Fulfilled by Amazon, absolutely. I use it very successfully. It's expensive. And what I mean by that is your profit margins will be diluted significantly by about 46%. So you need to make sure you're priced in a way that you can handle it. But, you know, when you see $10,000 in sales in 1 month on Amazon, but they only deposit 6,000, you need to be willing to give up that 4,000 and make money on volume. And that's how FBA works. It's really clean and streamlined because, you know, they'll tell me how much product they want me to ship. They'll show based on how much I'm selling. They'll say, these are your next 3 months projections, sell us another 1,000 units. And so I send the 1,000 units out. They distribute it throughout all their warehouses all over the country. I don't have to worry about, you know, so if I'm selling a lot in California, they'll send it to their California warehouse. There's a lot you get from them. The beauty of FBA too is that if I'm outside of the country, for example, I don't have to worry about who's picking, packing, and shipping orders because Fulfillment by Amazon has got it, right? And, you know, it's always on time and people really trust and rely on Amazon. So you're exposed to millions of people. And you can do Amazon advertising. When you're fulfilled by Amazon, also your ranking goes up on Amazon. So, you know, it's a world that has to be learned. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. We have two, I think there might be similar questions, so I'll ask the first one. Mohammed says, I am a manufacturer. Do I need a special license to be a private label provider? And Lily says, about licensing a service, what are the most significant differences from product licensing?
For a product what?
Licensing, sorry.
Licensing?
Like yeah, licensing, sorry, yeah.
Okay, so for Mohammed, I can't answer that exact as to whether you need a license to become a private label provider. I would think not, but you do need certain insurance. For example, my manufacturer provides insurance that guarantees that they're making things legitimately and using, you know, equipment that's sterilized and following the law in their manufacturing practices. So you need certain certifications that say you are allowed to do this, that what you're doing for me is as the government expects you to abide by laws, etc. So I would look into that though. I would contact probably the state business affairs department and just find out if you need a license to offer private labeling services. And then in terms of licensing, and you said and a service, right? So is she referring to licensing like let's say you want like a franchise? Is that the, I don't really understand the question.
Hey, I'm not sure. Licensing a service, what are the most significant differences from product licensing?
Well, typically, you know, product licensing is something that if you're going through a third-party contract manufacturer, they just offer you what they have off the shelf, the ready-made formulas. So you're not really licensing it from them. Licensing would look more like when I first launched Freshie, I had a blogger who was getting started, but she was doing very well, contact me about licensing my formula because she loved the product and was like, I want to do my own feminine care line. Can I license this from you? To which, of course, I said, no, it's a proprietary formula. I won't give it to anyone. And she still went and launched her own and did something different and did very well with it. But that's what licensing is, right? You would say to me, hey, Nelly, I want to license Freshie from you and call it Cool Girl, you know, and then I would say, well, that's going to cost you this much to use my formula with your own name on it. So that varies. That varies by who you're licensing from. It's just like franchising, right? Depending on how popular the brand you're trying to franchise, you're going to have to make a larger investment. And so the same thing goes for a service. I just think if you wanted to launch like a cleaning company and use the name of one of these brands that are already known, then it's going to cost you. And each different brand would have its own price.
Okay, so we have one last question. I think Angela is still on the topic of insurance. What kind of insurance do you need for personal care products? Does the manufacturer you use have to use a particular insurance?
No, so you should always, as a business owner, have liability insurance. When you have a product, you buy what's called product liability insurance. And some retailers will require you to have coverage up to $5 million. Some just the basic, the standard is $2 million in coverage. It's going to depend on your product. If you're doing a hair relaxer with lye, your policy is going to cost you a lot more than if you're doing an all natural deodorant, for example, right? Because the all natural deodorant has 3 ingredients in it, and it's not going to burn anyone's skin off more than likely unless they're allergic to something, but you need product liability insurance. And so you would contact an insurance agent, ideally that could walk you through what you need. I would start with the basic, and once you get into a national retailer, if they say to you, well, we need $5 million in coverage, then you can up it. But definitely start with the basic. The policy may cost you anywhere from $800 to $1,200 a year. It's not super expensive, but it's important to have, because if some size the product got with your brand name on it did something to them, then you want to be covered for that. But your manufacturer will be insured in case someone says, you know what, you sold me something that says no sulfates and it has sulfates. I can go back to my manufacturer and they can say, no, we're covered. We used a non-sulfate ingredient in there, and so on. So they will have insurance. They must, like, they can't operate without it. But you should, as the brand owner, have your own product liability.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're at the end of today's presentation. I did see 2 more questions, but we do have a webinar coming up, the NJ Business Registration, Small Business Registration Certification webinar coming up. So Carol, I do see you have some questions here, and I'm recommending to you to please follow up with us. Our website is www.rnsbdc.com. RN for Rutgers-Newark, SBDC.com. Great, Nellie just put that information on the screen. You can also give us a call at 973-353-1413 or 973-353-5950. Nellie is available if you want further consultation on private labeling. I see Carol's asking some information on co-packers. Just reach out to us. We are more than willing and ready to answer any questions that you may have regarding private labeling, import, export. That's what we're here, and it's provided, it's paid for by your tax dollars. It's not going to cost you anything. So we would like to thank you so much for taking the time out to tune into our webinar today. We look forward to you joining us in future webinars, and be safe, keep well, have a good afternoon.